Very good.
Alexander, you can change the chair.
Je préfère pour...
Okay. We can do this.
It's better for me.
Okay. The chair speaks for me.
Eben, je suis ravi de t'avoir ici avec nous sur cet événement, ce congrès de la mort imminente organisé par Sionel Barcala.
Complètement. Absolument. Totally. So the question, how it's changed my kind of view of medicine and healing. Yes, it before my coma, I thought I understood how the brain, the mind, and consciousness work. I'd spent 20 years in neurosurgery, spent 15 years at Harvard Medical School, operating on people with very severe maladies of the brain. And my coma experience taught me that in fact consciousness, soul, spirit is eternal, is the thing that exists. The spark of being self, of awareness that we have even right here in this, in this moment to moment in this room, that spark does not go away when our body and brain die. In fact, that spark enlarges tremendously and becomes part of our higher consciousness, which is much grander, much more knowing. And in fact, that is a consciousness that we all share. There are still some boundaries of self, even between lives, and we come back from many reincarnations, but it has to do with knowing that our soul is here with soulmates, and soulmates may even include those who appear to be an enemy in this incarnation. I know that there were people that I saw as working against me before my coma. I now realize that they were soulmates helping me learn very dear lessons. By soulmates I mean that we've been together many times. I look at it like flying fish. We come down into this world and we work with our soulmates, we learn lessons here. The hardships and difficulties, disease, illness are hurdles that help us learn. They're gifts that allow us to learn higher and higher lessons and also to teach others. For instance, when a very young child is sick with a terminal illness, often that child is a very advanced soul that is bringing a lesson of love and faith and knowing the eternity of our souls into this world for fellow soulmates around that child. And seeing that the thing that matters is really the connections we have with other souls, and that it is all about our ascendance in a higher realm, which is a time and causality completely free of this realm, and that is all about how we manifest the love, unconditional love of the Creator down in this realm and show compassion and forgiveness. And that allows our souls in that higher realm to ascend. And so the flying fish is like when we're up out of the water, that's when we're in that higher realm, the higher knowing, soulmates, learning our lessons, feeling the pain that we may have given out to others in this life. We feel it from the point of view of our victims and their families and everyone else, every other soul that was affected by it. And that's part of the lessons we learn and then come back in to do more. But the clock is not ticking out there like it is down here. And that explains so much about how we see our departed loved ones when we're making that transition. That's what people glimpse in a deathbed visitation, in near-death experiences. And it's because our souls do not die, so that when our body leaves this incarnation, when our soul leaves this incarnation and this body dies, we often encounter those other loved ones, and that's part of ascending up there and then going through those life reviews and lessons. But the important thing to understand is the time flow out there is completely different, and from out there we have access to any part of time.
And are we choosing our life experiences?
Yes, that's a big part of it.
Yes. I
So
think the same,
people
yes.
would often ask me,
Yes.
oh, so this all-loving God gave you this deadly meningitis that should have killed you? No, I came here to get it. But it took me 2 years to understand that after my coma.
Okay.
Believe me, this did not come easy. I had to really go down deep to understand it.
I have just a question. Do you know the work of Gilbert Taylor?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, My Stroke of Insight.
Because she feels the same things?
Mm-hmm.
She was...
Yeah, it's her story is, I love the part of her story in My Stroke of Insight where she describes the hemorrhage that was right in her, what's called Wernicke's area, in the receptive language part of the brain. So the hemorrhage destroyed her concepts of definitions and boundaries. And when it did that, as she was sitting there, she started becoming one with the chair, the floor, the desk, the room, and had this overwhelming sense of love for all of it, because all of it was self. And she just saw all the beautiful connectedness of everything that is. And that's very similar to my journey, except my journey involved having that feeling for the entire multiverse, all eternity, all of...
Multiverse.
Yes, much, because my whole brain was gone. So I got to go very, very deep into that level. But that same sense of all the oneness that we all are, and it's all through consciousness, and at the deepest level is absolutely divine. It's the creative source of all the universe, and it is pure love. This is all healing energy of that love that we bring.
Is this your mission of life, in this life? To
go
this is
to explain and
my mission is at least that,
okay.
if not more. I don't know. I don't pretend to know my whole life mission yet. I also know that when this act of the play is over, when I take this costume and it's gone and I ascend to my higher
It's
level.
like clothes. Our body is
Right,
like
it's like a costume.
Like
Like
a
a
costume.
costume.
Yes.
And so when I get rid, even when I get rid of this costume, I will not have yet learned everything of this life, but then I'll come back in with the next one to try and get it better.
Experience,
More and
other,
more
yes,
and more and
deeper
more.
and deeper and
And
deeper.
did you
Because
know
it's all
why?
evolving. Why?
Why we must have so many life? Sorry, I don't speak nice.
Because
Too much to
the goal. Well, the goal is getting towards that that absolute perfection of absolute love, of being one with God. I mean, very much to being Christ-like and beyond. So it takes many, many, many lives to get there. But that's why we all know some souls that are kind of early in the game, and some souls that are very advanced, that have been able to let go of self completely and are totally about the oneness that we all share and about that pure love. And then of course you have the ones who are still very early, who have not evolved very far, very much still full of self. And so it involves many lifetimes to ascend to that highest of levels.
Do you remember previous lives?
I have remembered previous lives with other people that I know in this life. The thing I have not done that I'm still doing is validating some of the information that I have about previous lives. Because for me, I'm still very much the scientist, so I still very much want to get information that proves, that validates. Exactly. Yeah, just if I find things that I can validate through checking historical records, birth records, and life stories based on specific information, then that helps me to know the truth of it.
And how are you working now?
Well, I'm very much old school in terms of neurosurgery, which means if I operate on people's brains, I need to be there 24/7, be there all the time. This, the book and the presentations and all that is taking up all my time now, so I can't do more of that. I did continue to see patients until a few months ago. I would see patients from my colleagues and they would do the operations. But even that I haven't had time for. Someday I would like to get back to patient care, but it will involve working with patients who are terminal in hospice, families who are losing a loved one, because I can help them a lot more than I my skills as a neurosurgeon were very valuable to get me to this point. They're very important because without knowing everything I did about neuroscience, I would not have been able to know the reality of my experience. Because my doctors, just like doctors in general, told me, you know, when I started waking up, they couldn't believe it. They were shocked. They still don't have an explanation. But they would go, "You were very sick." Your brain was soaking in pus. And the dying brain does all kinds of crazy things. So you can forget about it. You know, you can forget about it. And I would go, okay. But then
after this time, after when your friend medicine say, oh, you was very sick, how did you affirm your experience in life?
Yes. What I did was, first of all, my older son, who was majoring in neuroscience, he came home 2 days after I got out of the hospital, and he could tell there was something going on. He said there was like a light shining from me, that it was totally different. And you know, the last time he'd seen me, I'd been in coma on a ventilator. And in fact, when he first saw me on the ventilator in coma, he walked in the door that first night, and he knew I was gone. He knew my soul was gone. And he was there for 4 days and nights with the rest of the family, holding my hand, hoping something would go right, but nothing was going right. I was not getting better. I didn't have any neurologic function, no more response to painful stimuli. My brain stem was very damaged. My eyes were like that, off to each side, and pupils were fixed. I was very, very sick. And so he was sure I was dead, but then he got a call that I'd started coming back. And so he drove home 2 days before, or 2 days after I got out of the hospital. And when he saw this, he was shocked. And he could see how ecstatic I was. I was so excited to be alive. I mean, just every little breath, being back in a body. I mean, for one thing, to even fit in a body seems very hard. You know, because these bodies are so kind of small and confined compared to our spirit, which is much bigger. And so squeezing back in with this costume. And he told me, don't read anything about near-death experiences, physics, cosmology. He said, write down your story, write everything you can remember. And that was the best advice ever. And I spent 6 weeks, I wrote about 20,000 words and wrote out everything I could remember. He also told me, do not talk with anyone who was there when you were waking up, which is also very good news because I wanted to talk to everybody and kind of confirm some things and ask things.
After your book, it's okay.
And yeah, afterwards, but it was very important to get my story down. And
your story
from in coma, the adventure deep in coma.
Yes.
Because if you would ask me before my coma, how much would such a patient remember who was very, very deathly ill with bacterial meningitis, goes into a coma within 3 hours. I mean, normally that already gives you way under a 10% chance of living through it. By the end of the week, I was down to 2% chance of surviving and no chance of recovery. And so then to kind of wake up, and then over really the better part of 5 or 6 weeks, I was recovered. And my doctors, to this day, have no explanation. But it was very good advice for my son to tell me to write everything down. Very important to understand, at that point, I didn't remember anything about consciousness. Neurosurgery, neuroscience. I was just beginning to get my family memories back and language, which had all been lost. And not only that, but it was only several weeks later that I finally started going into my medical records and realizing how sick I was with severe meningitis. Meningitis is the very best disease to mimic human death because it takes the whole outer surface of the brain, the neocortex, and attacks it and destroys it.
And what is actually your healing? Je parle peut-être pas très bien. Are you totally
healed?
Healed.
Yeah, I came back even better than before. Within 3 months, I was completely healed and even improved. And of course, that was something my doctors had no clue how to explain at all. if there was any side effect from it all, it's that I was so ecstatic about being alive that I didn't sleep much. So I would get up at 1:30 or 2 every morning and just write.
Eben, merci pour cette interview, parce que je crois que le timing,
Oh.
tu dois intervenir.
Okay.
Juste peut-être une dernière question.